morning, ladies and gentlemen. I noticed a lot of you guys were having a little problem with the study island, and in truth, it is a more complex one. So here's a video to try and help you guys out while you're working on this one. If you already have an 85% or a blue ribbon and you're advanced or 85 or higher with 10 questions, you can watch this, but you don't have to continue going on your study island. For those of you guys that are having trouble, this video is for pretty much to help you guys, and you can access this at any time. What I'm going to do, I can't go through every single question, but what I can do is give you the different styles of questions. So there's about 3 or 4 that I'm going to go over. This is the first style of question that you have all seen, where we're comparing 2 different components of statistics here. All this stuff up top, really, this is misinformation up top. It's just giving you the example of what they're talking about with the number of chocolate chips in 2 different types of cookies here. What we need to focus on is what they're giving us in the problem. So what I see is we have a mean absolute deviation for each brand is 0.08. So I'm going to write that down, but that's going to be, I'm going to use that a little bit later. Okay, that's not what I'm focused on right now, because what the next sentence says is the difference between the mean number of chocolate chips for each brand is approximately how many times the mean absolute deviation. So I have to break this up into steps. Step 1, in this case, and this word may change over here. The mean, that may change. Sometimes they'll ask you for the median, sometimes they'll ask you for the mode. Okay? In the mean, we know that we have to add all of these up for brand A, add all these totals up, and then divide by how many there were. And the same thing for brand B. So step 1 in this case is find the mean of both. So that's what I'm going to do. And here's how I do that. If I go through and count, and this right here, this dot plot, I'm counting and I see, all right, I have 118. So here's what I would be doing on my paper. I write down 18 because there's only 118. I could go through and now I look at the 19s. 19 is my next set, but there are how many 19s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So really, this is 19 times 6. The next one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have 6 20s, so 20 times 6. And what I like to do is if I know what the value is right away, I could write in 20 times 6, and then I could just write to the side what it actually equals. I know that 20 times 6 is 120. I know that 18 technically times 1 is 18. I'll come back to this one in a second. 21 times 6, because that's what I have right here, I know that one off the top of my head as well, but again, you could use a calculator. It would just be 6 more than 120, which is 126, which then in turn makes 119 6 less than 120, which is 114. And then lastly, add 122 up here, which is just 22. Now what do I have to do with all these? I have to add them up and total them. And again, this is the calculator portion, so you go through, add it all up. I get a total of 400 total units up there, or total chocolate chips. So that 400, the mean of this first one, I have to divide it by how many there were up here, which in this case, 6, 12, 18, 19, 20, 400 divided by 20. The mean for this one right here is 20. So I found the mean of brand A. I'm still on this first step. Find the mean of brand B. So I'm going to do it the exact same way. I'm going to actually do that in red so we can split that up. And now I'm just going up here and counting. So I have how many 14s? I noticed I had 8 14s. So I have 14 times 8, which after I calculated, that's 112. I have 6 15s. So I have 15 times 6, which in this case I do know that that's 90. If you have to calculate that, that's fine. Here, the 16, I have 16 times 5 because there are 5 16s. I know that's 80. Again, if you have to calculate, that's fine. And then we have 118. So what do I do with these totals? I add them all together. This time I get 300. And then if I go through and count how many total there were here, I have 11, 12, 20. I'm taking 300, dividing by 20 because there were 20 dots up here, and that gives me a mean of 15. So that's the first step. I found the mean of both. Okay? Now, step 2. I'm going to erase all of this. Don't need to find the mean anymore. Step 2 is the next part in my problem, which in this case, I need to find the difference between the means? Well, the difference in this case means I'm going to subtract, because we know the difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So I take my mean here, 20, subtract 15 for my second mean, and I get a difference of 5. So I've taken care of the difference between the two means. I've taken care of the mean of both. Now the question is, each brand is approximately how many times the mean absolute deviation? Remember this 0.8 that we left alone for the time being. This is the last step in the problem. Step 3, now I have to divide. And what am I going to divide? I'm going to divide my mean difference by the mean absolute deviation. So my mean difference here was 5. I'm going to take that and divide it by 0.8. And it does say approximately here, so we know that our answer is going to be probably in a decimal form where we're going to approximate which one it is. So I take 5, divide by 0.8, and I get 6.25. Which one is that? That approximately 6.25 is approximately 6. So I know it's a lot of steps. Really, it's 3 steps, but in this case, all it's doing is when you see these little dot plots and they're saying, hey, the mean or the median, the difference in the median, the difference in the modes is approximately how many times the mean absolute deviation. You don't even have to calculate the absolute. So I know it's a lot of steps. It's only 3, but it is a lot of work, and I understand that. When you get questions like this, make sure you identify, yes, you're finding the difference. The difference of what? In this case, we wanted the mean. Again, they will change that. Sometimes they'll say median. Sometimes they'll say mode. It's still the same thing, except you're solving for the mode. And then in the end, they're saying it's about how many times the mean absolute deviation, or how many times the variance. Sometimes they'll give you word variability in here. It's the same thing. We're going to divide our difference, which in this case it was 5. We're going to divide this 5 by what our mean absolute deviation or our variability was, which was 0.8, and then that we should get a solid answer then. Okay, next type of question is a box and whisker plot, and this is exactly what a box and whisker plot looks like. Here we have the box in the center, and then the whiskers are the 2 ends on the side here. So I'm going to, all this stuff up here, again, it's a box and whisker plot made about the number of catfish caught each day. Pretty much that's just giving us information about what this is talking about. Down here is what I'm looking for. So, first thing I have, the difference in the median number of catfish each day. So I'm looking to compare Friday versus Saturday. Now where's my median? My median is physically in the center of the data. It's halfway through and right in the middle. Where's that in both cases? That's what this little line is. This is the median of a box and whisker plot. So I'm asked, in this case, to find the median of Friday. So that's the first thing I have to do here. The median of Friday, I look down here, I have 25, 26, that is 27. Therefore, the median of Saturday, which this is our median right here, is 16. And if I have to find the difference here, that means physically to subtract. This whole problem, that as I've been looking forward, this is a big subtraction problem. So 27 minus 16, the difference there is just 9. So when you're typing in this first box, that is just a difference of 9. Next, the difference between the interquartile ranges of the number of catfish caught each day. This is one we haven't had a chance to talk about, but it's more subtraction problem. You just have to know what you're looking for. Here's where I'm looking. My interquartile range is physically talking about, it's physically talking about the highest value of your box to the lowest value of your box. It's physically looking inside, all about the box right here. And that's where you're finding a range. So I look at Friday and I figure out, you know what, here is the top value of my box, which is at 31. That's actually called quartile 3. And then we're going to take this 31 and subtract this one right here, which is called quartile 1, which is at 24. So now, again, like I said, it's going to be a subtraction problem. For Friday, our interquartile range here is 31 minus 24, which is 7. And now I have to compare this 7 with the interquartile range of Saturday. So I'm going to come over to Saturday here, and figure out, well, you know what, here's quartile 3, which is at the very top of my box, which in this case is 19. I come all the way to the bottom of my box. Quartile 1 is at 12. And now it's 19 minus 12, which again is 7. So the question is, in these two 7s right here, what is the difference between those interquartile ranges? Well, nothing. So therefore, the interquartile range there is 0. Last part is his first very long-winded question is now, again, the difference of the ranges of number of catfish caught each day. So I'm going to have to erase this stuff so we can all see. Here's where we're looking at. If I'm talking about the ranges of all of this data, the range from Saturday is pretty straightforward because it's physically the whiskers. So now you're looking at the top value of your whiskers. So what's your top value there? 25, 6, 7, and 28. And then your bottom value is all the way down here, which is 8. So if I have to find the range there, for Saturday, I'm taking 28, subtract 8, which is 20. That's a pretty straightforward one. Friday is also decently straightforward. There's something that we need to actually take a look at. I know the top value here, the longest whisker I have, is 35 because I don't have anything else above it. So I have a 35 right here. And here's the part where all this data was pretty much put together. Imagine that they had this giant group of this fishing contest essentially, and all this data for Friday is calculated up here. Well, we have something all the way out here. If you see this little dot, this is called an outlier. And what an outlier is, it's information that's very far away from the general perception of what you have in a box and whisker plot. So the majority of the information is all in here, but then imagine that one person, and think about a lot of people were catching about 35 fish, and the median number was 27 fish. It's a lot of fish. But all the way down here, you had one guy only catch 13 fish. So that's why it's called an outlier, because it's pretty much far away from all of our data. So that 35, and then the low value down here is 13. So how do I find my range there? I'm just taking 35 minus 13, which is 22. So the difference in the ranges there, now I have to calculate the difference between these, which means I have to subtract them and get 2. And the last question down here, on which day was there more variability in the number of catfish caught? That's asking you again to compare these two right here. So obviously, which one had more variability? Which one had a greater range? Friday is your greater range. So those are 2 questions. I know that was decently long. I'm going to publish another video for you to give you some more, the other 2 questions that you could possibly see. And one other thing, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately in my haste I was not thinking clearly. Obviously up here we had 27, and down here we're talking about 27 minus 17, or 27 minus 16. Yes, for whatever reason I was not thinking about, excuse me, these 2 right here. 27 minus 16. For that first answer, obviously I typed in the wrong thing and wasn't thinking up here. That should be 11. So that's my fault. I was not really thinking ahead on that one. But again, are the steps pretty much the process? Aside from a minor calculator error, you guys are fine. Okay? So I'll publish that second video for you and give you another good look at what you're going to see with these study islands.